We've talked a lot about smart meters, but they're predicated on a smart grid. What does a smart grid mean to you?
Smart grid for me is really an enabler and enables a whole myriad of options for customers. I guess the first and foremost thing is you cannot really have a smart grid, I don't believe, unless you have a very robust piece of infrastructure on which to overlay this technology and your communications layer on top. I mean, you can have the smartest grid in the world, but if it's falling down at every weather event, well, really that's not too smart.
And what is that communications layer that you're putting across the top?
Well, we have, I guess we are probably spending more time looking at our communications layers right now than we are on just the pure smart grid technologies. For example, in Galway, we've built, in advance of any of the telcos, we've built our own 4G networks over there. So we're trialling LTE and WiMAX as a way to communicate with electric vehicle charging points. Obviously, 4G isn't suitable for all of our solution. Well, it's not the solution for all of our problems. So we're also looking at up to 8 different communications media in order to be able to communicate with all the different devices out there on our network. We also have an extensive fibre optic network out there in Ireland, about 2,500 kilometres of network, fibre optic alone. And if you know Ireland, I mean, you can drive across Ireland in 3 or 4 hours, so 2,500 kilometres is quite an extensive network, and it only is growing every month, every day nearly it's being added to.
A couple more questions, please. We've talked about the smart grid, we've talked about smart meters. What about this notion of a smart city? Is that something that excites you? Is that something that interests you? Is that something that you think is coming down the line?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the conferences that I go to are all into energy, but also like water and waste and the like. So I think whereas the smart message might have had its genesis, I guess, in electricity and energy, it is most definitely evolving into the kind of water and other spaces. And work that we're doing with EPRI over in the States, the Electric Power Research Institute, even though they're only focused on electricity, they are also can see the merits in sort of going down these.
And if you had to explain those merits to a member of your family that's got nothing to do with this industry, what would you say? Well,
I think it's probably not a very well-known fact that the obtaining of water from a river or a lake or whatever, the distribution of water in its drinking form and to plants, and then the removal of wastewater consumes a hell of a lot of electricity. Like some estimates put it between 20 and 30%. So obviously, while we're talking about a domestic reduction of maybe 3%, there's big reductions also in the industrial commercial sector, and that, in my opinion, is smart. So as a human being, as an individual on the planet here, the smart cities prospect is something that I'm very excited about on a global level.
Great. And a final question. So you've had experience of rolling out smart meters, or in the beginning of the process of rolling out smart meters?
We've done the pilot.
You've done the pilot.
Yeah.
So this is a European conference. There's lots of utilities from the rest of Europe. What one piece of advice would you give to them in terms of what you've learned so far?
Yeah, I would say tread softly. Conduct your analysis, your initial analysis, and conduct it well. Learn from that, build on that, and implement something that's suitable for you, either your utility or your country. Like in some of the bigger European countries, obviously, there's multiple utilities. In Ireland, what we have to do is write for our utility, but also write for Ireland Inc. And that's something I'd encourage all utilities to keep in mind when they're designing their own smart metering rollout programs.
John Byrne, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Cheers.
Thank you.